Y'all planning for this?
Jamie, you can't say that. Well, guess what, TPR Nation? Not only can I say it, but there's probably a really strong chance that I already did say it. There are two memes that I continually get from associates and friends and people that I network with, center of influence, and even family members when my podcast airs on Thursday in the Worlds to Conquer episode. And that is a individual holding a microphone, it dropping, or a person super blushing and retreating from a situation. Normally, because I've said something really, really freaking candid, and maybe it wasn't always kind or nice, or maybe it was a little bit too blunt, but it was certainly the God honest truth. Welcome back, TPR Nation. This is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer. And one of my favorite text messages in the world to get is when my nephew Gabriel quotes me and send something back. And normally, because we record these episodes and then, a few months or weeks go by and then they get aired. And so by the time that he's recorded it, it's ancient history in my mind. When I go back and he quotes something to me, I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, it's on your episode today. This is what you said, blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, how did you make you feel? And he's like, it's hilarious. And I was like, oh, thank goodness we're raising babies with sense of humors around here, because we have gotten into a culture where people get so easily offended that they're going to die from an insult or die because somebody said something that they didn't want to hear. You don't wake up with leprosy in the morning because somebody said something offensive. Move on with your life. Take the diaper off, put your big girl pants on, and move on with life. If you don't like what somebody has to say, then you have to ask yourself, do I not like it because it is a God honest gospel truth and I didn't want to hear it? Or did I not like it because it was not the truth and it was such an untruth, such a lie that I would spend the rest of my life defending the fact that it is a lie in itself? So either one of those scenarios, again, you don't wake up disformed in either one of those cases. You got to be able to let things go. And I really think, TPR Nation, one of the reasons that we are growing at a radical rate in the financial planning industry. And if you remember, my baby brother's Micah Shalansky, his good friend is Matthew Jarvis of Jarvis Financial Services. And they have both taken the financial industry by storm, all because they attended a conference and they got up, asked some questions of the guest speaker, who was, of course, claiming to be some type of expert in the industry on some subject matter. And they wanted more information. Now, if you know Matthew Jarvis and Micah Shalansky, they're very direct. They're going to call you out. They're going to ask pointed questions, but they're really not trying to embarrass you. We don't want to embarrass anyone. There's no gain in our life. We don't go to bed feeling like better people if we've embarrassed you by calling you out. What we are in is the pursuit of perfection. We want knowledge. We want information. But we want it from people that have experience in that particular field. We want somebody that has stepped into the trenches, that has gone through the gunfire. We want somebody that is going to tell us how to be better because they walked this path also. Now, I'm not saying that you can't glean advice from people that haven't walked the path, but I'm saying when you walk into the gym to hire a personal trainer, you don't choose the obese middle-aged woman, do you? No, you choose the person that is physically fit and in shape. Why? Because you know that person is also having to struggle with the discipline of making all the type of choices that you need to make to become better physically and more athletic, more healthful, have better vitality, all of those things. And so they got up at this conference and they said, hey, thank you so much. You shared this information. Can you tell me how it works when you meet with a client and do X, Y, and Z? And the person said, well, I don't meet with clients, right? And so it opens up this dialogue of saying, well, it should work like this. Or if your clients are asking you that, or if you meet with a client and they say this, then blah, blah, blah. Well, all of a sudden, now you're telling me what to do in a client situation, but you've never met with a client. You don't know what it's like to sit across the table from somebody and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, will you please transfer your entire life savings, everything that you have earned and scraped and saved and put into accounts to plan for the future so that you don't die broke and going to have to go back to work after you retire? Could you please transfer that to me? And when you transfer that me to manage, can you just trust my advice blindly that I'm going to lead you down the right path, even though I can't control the markets or performance or economy or pandemics or anything else in life that happens? And oh, by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I'm highly compensated in my industry. So I would like to be charging you 1.5, 1.75, 2% of those fees, and maybe even additional financial planning fee. Have you sat across from a client and asked them to pay you money on their money? No, you haven't. Okay, cool. Take a seat. I don't take gun class instructions from somebody that only plays with Nerf guns and doesn't actually pick up a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun, whatever. You have to be able to take advice from people that have walked in those experiences because they get it. They know. And that's one of the reasons at the Perfect RIA, where we have our different memberships between Backstage Pass and Invictus, is that we have a really staunch no BS rule. And a lot of people like to email into lifestyle@theperfectria.com and they say, hey, I would love Matt to talk about this. I'd love Micah to talk about this. I'd love Jamie to cover this topic. I have this question. And if you have a question, guess what? So do 10,000 other people. We have over 1 million downloads of this podcast. When I say it is wildly and radically popular, we can't believe the success that take off with this. And at that conference where Matt and Micah were asking those questions and getting really, really unsettled by the fact that somebody was out there espousing what they needed to tell their clients, but had no experience actually sitting across from a client, they began to question that. What gives you the authority here? What gives you the mastery of the subject? How are you an expert? Can you please explain yourself a little bit to me? And it wasn't to embarrass this person, but it was to filter through how much of this should I really take to heart? Because guess what, TPR Nation? Here's something that's not brand new information to you. People in life are going to tell you whatever you are willing to listen to. And few times do we ask enough questions to filter through that advice and say, does this apply to me? Is this applicable? Is this something I should be listening to? And we got to put aside our pride and ego, and we have to say, okay, it does apply, or maybe I don't like it because it is true. So that night, Matt and Micah went to a bar. Everyone in the conference was there, some wholesalers, everyone's cutting up loose. And Matt and Micah walk in and talk about clearing out a bar. People started leaving one by one because they didn't like being called out on the spot. They didn't like having that confrontation. They didn't like having to explain themselves in any capacity. So Matt and Micah did what anyone in those situations should do, grabbed a couple cocktails and started shucking and jiving. And they were cracking themselves up so much that they whipped out an iPhone and Micah said, Jarvis, we have to record this. It's hilarious. And so they just started bantering back and forth. A couple of weeks passed by and Micah said, hey, do you think we got something here? Do you think there are other people out there in the industry that want this type of advice? Because all we get is this washed down PC, don't want to offend anyone, want to tell everyone how to accomplish all their goals, but haven't accomplished those goals for myself yet, advice. And they said, you know what? If not, this is really great therapy for us. And so they started meeting up every single week and recording episodes just based on what was going on at RIA, Shalansky and Associates, or at Jarvis Financial Services. And then we talked about team members and processes and clients and prospects and all of these different things. And it blew up. All of a sudden it caught like wildfire and people were like, yes, this content is what we want. And then, as a couple of years went by and I was meeting with a bunch of our team members and going to these conferences, and I've always sort of been in the background, writing our content, being the voice of, even when you get offended and think, wow, this email went too far. Yeah, it's probably me. And so one of our team members, Amber, completely bullied me into saying, hey, listen, I'll commit to these goals. I'll put extreme accountability around, but you need to commit to recording a podcast. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that because I'm not really a spotlight kind of gal. I don't like it. I like having meaningful conversations. I like being radically candid. I like pushing people towards their best because my God, how many people out there don't believe that they are capable of greatness? Just blows my mind. How many grown adults I meet that are still committed to the fact that somebody in their life historically told them that they are not worthy, they are not good enough, they are not smart enough, they are not loved enough, and they believed it. They believed it. They created the most egregious sin of believing somebody else's negativity as their truth. So I said, hey, I'll do a couple episodes. I'll see if there's any, demand from people. I certainly don't want to be junking up your feed. Everything in life is competing for your attention. I don't want my voice to be one more thing. And so aired a couple of episodes and Amber was like, yes, this is exactly what we need. All of a sudden we started getting emails and comments and, people talking to our growth manager, Tracy Ottinger, and just saying, oh my gosh, Jamie calls it how it is. And it's freaking hilarious listening to it. I want you to know something. When we call things out, when we're radically candor, it's never from a place of thinking that we're better. oh my gosh, I'm not better than anyone in this life. And I think that success and is possible because if I can do it, so can you. God didn't make me any different than any other cut of cloth. I just don't believe in the Bolshevik that people like to sell me, telling me I'm not smart enough, not popular enough, not good enough, not all of these different things. I don't care. That's your opinion. You can have your opinion all day long. You can try to tell me what you think I should or shouldn't be. But at the end of the night, I have to close my eyes and know I did right by my God, my family, and my friends. That's it. That's what I have to go to bed with. And if I can do that successfully, everyone else can go pound sand. I don't care. I'm not going to wake up to form because you have an opinion I didn't want to hear. So as we continued on in our pursuit, we attended different conferences. We would do pre-cons, we'd do breakout sessions. We'd attend as attendees, as paid attendees. As this podcast got more and more popular, we started getting kicked out of more and more events just for showing up. And the reason is if you're asking yourself, like, how come these people are getting kicked out? Not everyone likes to hear what somebody has to say. And it's not like we're walking into rooms trumpeting it as the biggest. We don't have to take up the whole space. But if people are going to ask us questions, if we're going to be asked our opinion, we're going to give it. But sometimes people don't always want to hear that, right? They want to hear what they want to hear, not what is the actual truth. And so as we went to these conferences, this generation cultural movement of woke financial advisors started filtering into all of these events and would get offended by our presence, even if we didn't sit down and say anything, even if we had nothing to say. We didn't ask any questions, we didn't shuck, we didn't jive, we didn't do anything. And all of a sudden it led to the organizer of the event saying, hey, listen, we've got people that are really intimidated by your presence, so we'd like you to leave this conference. Are you freaking kidding me? You're intimidated by somebody's presence that you're going to go to the administrator and ask those people who also paid to attend this event, who are also there to learn, to leave? Freaking toughen up. Where did you grow up? Sissy Lawville? It's incredulous to me. I've never once been in a room and felt so intimidated by someone that I needed to go ask somebody else to leave. You know what I did? Freaking manned up. Enough of it. So anyhow, as we started to do these things and started getting uninvited to events, we said, you know what? There must be a group of people out there that want the same type of candid advice. They don't care about your feelings being all sensitive and fragile. They want you to actually succeed and have growth and achieve things and be accountable for those things. And so we really found our tribe. We found our nation. We started doing more of these podcasts. We started getting all these webinar invites. We started asking people, saying, hey, listen, can you show up? Matthew Jarvis's book, Deliver Massive Value, has become the blueprint towards running a financial advisory office. I mean, it's just wildly popular and successful. He's traveled all around the world. He was most recently in UK, where he was asked to do a presentation on it. And it's not that we have some secret. We have a secret we want to share, at least, with everyone. It's not just ours. We want you to know this too. We want you to have this growth, you to have this lifestyle that makes every single morning one worth getting up for. I mean, I can't tell you that when I get out of bed in the morning, my feet hit the ground running and I've got this blood pumping and I am so excited for the day ahead. So excited. Even though if somebody asked me what my job was, I would tell them I'm a firefighter. So between the 5 different organizations that I have a C-suite spot in, I mean, I am just a firefighter from one day to another, but it doesn't wind me. I don't get annoyed. I don't get frustrated. I don't think, by God, why am I doing this? Because God is only giving me what I can handle. And I know that. And I know that most of the time, if we just put the bureaucracy and the PC crap on the back burner, my God, we can solve some big problems. We can really, truly be in the pursuit of perfection. But we got to ego check. We got to put that to the side and say, what do I have to learn from this? I had to do this recently with my son, Lane. So he was previously a compliance officer at a bank, and they had their big Christmas party. And it was their annual Christmas party. They rented out a venue. I mean, it was a whole thing. And in your mind, when you're thinking of an annual Christmas party, how does everyone dress for that event? Yeah, they dress up. So his girlfriend he was dating at the time, she bought new dress, new shoes. He knew ahead of time because she sent pictures because God forbid we don't get outfit approval ahead of time. So he knew the caliber of this event. And he went in very casual clothing. And his opinion was they should be happy I showed up because I wasn't going to attend anyway. And he didn't want to get dressed up because he didn't want to look whooped. He didn't want to match the attire. He didn't think or need. And so one of the guys at work who he really does not like asked him and said, hey, did you give any consideration to the dress code for this in the evening? And he got so mad. Lane got so mad at this guy and was like, da 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 da, right? And so he's telling me about this story. And sure enough, right, they're posting their pictures of this evening on social media. So I jump online, I go find these pictures, and I'm like, you are wickedly underdressed for this event. And I said, so you got so mad, you got so frustrated, and not because this guy was a jerk and picking on you. You got so mad and frustrated because this guy was right. He was right. You were wickedly underdressed and you did not look like you should have during this event. And that's not a conversation I often have with my son because he knows about dress code. He knows about attire. He knows about presenting himself. He was raised around entrepreneurs. This is not brand new information for him, but he didn't like getting called out. And the reason he didn't like getting called out is because that guy was right. He was correct. So if you don't like that, is that your ego coming forward? Is that you getting embarrassed or ashamed because you are resonating with some type of truth? It had some truth inside of that you really felt uncomfortable. You didn't like hearing what they had to say about it because they were right. And it reminds me because a couple of years ago, we had this, Matthew Jarvis, if you have not checked out his LinkedIn, please do. He says things because he wants to stir up conversation. He wants to have really honest conversations online. And he's completely transparent about his stuff. He'll call out and this is what, kind of blows my mind if the people think that Matt and Mike are so arrogant, so haughty. And I'm like, then you really haven't had a conversation with them. You really don't know them. You're just judging them from afar. Because if you say, hey, have you ever thought about this or that? Or, here's my counter to that argument. You know what they'll say? That's a great point. Or, you know what? I thought that too, but here's how I went around this. This is what I read, da, da, da. So they're really good about having these open and honest conversations. But even when people post online, they take it as, oh my gosh, this is the most egregious thing. So about a year and a half or 2 years ago, there was this giant fee debate going online about fee-only advisors. Now, I don't like that people put fee-only advisor in their LinkedIn biography profile. Now, the reason I don't like it is not because I'm anti-fee only. I don't give a how you're paid. It's your business model. You figure out what works for you and knock yourself out. I don't care. But what I do care about is putting the money before the value, putting the money out there first, because we think that's what consumers are so concerned about. And I think that is a wildly misguided conversation between regulatory authorities, consumers, because we're always learning from litigation, all these things, that we stop thinking about the heartbeats. We start thinking about the people. And the people who come into us and meet with our financial advisors, yes, they're concerned about cost. Yes, they want to know how much this fee is, but really they want to know, can you help me? Can you help me? Like, I need help. I need a sounding board. I need somebody to help me navigate and make these financial decisions. And for me, I think that's what should come first and foremost, not how much you charge up front. Let's be transparent about fees. I can have that conversation all day long. But really, this should be about what you're willing to do for your clients, what you're willing to do for your prospects, what service you are going to provide them. So I think you should lead with value and service. That's my personal opinion. But guess what? I'm not really on social media. So unless you're a comedian or an astronaut in space, I'm probably not seeing your reel, yet alone your posts. So you get to go have whatever social media channel you want. Those are just my personal opinions on how I see it. But my God, the fever when Matthew posted about fee-only advisors, everyone was just like, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, and espousing their opinion. And they were so greatly offended by what he had to say. If you don't like what he has to say about your business model, guess what? Don't invite him to be your business partner. Who cares? Move on. It doesn't serve you to do all of this backlash because you don't like what somebody had to say. Instead, figure out what does work and go spread that change and be the person that says, you know what? I think fee-only model is the only way to go because X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to live and die by that truth. All right, awesome, cool. I like it. You know what I don't like? I don't like hypocrisy. I don't like people saying I'm doing this from benevolence, because most of the time, financial advisory firms, especially RIAs, are subsidizing clients. You're charging the people that you think can afford your services a lot more money than the people you think can't. And to me, that's not equality. That's injustice. That's socialism and fees. And we all do it, and we're all guilty of it. And by the way, I'm not going to sit here and say that our RIA doesn't do the same thing. I'm saying that every single year we have to remind ourselves of that, and we do a sort of an analysis. We go through and do an audit of it. Because we want to be really careful that we're not being hypocrites and we want to live in our truth. The Perfect RIA, we have two different types of memberships, right? We have Backstage Pass and we have Invictus. Backstage Pass is like purchasing a gym membership. All the equipment is there, but you got to put in the grind. You got to do the discipline. You got to figure it out yourself. Invictus is your personal coaching. This is where people want to put their money where their mouth is and they want growth now. They don't just want to see what growth could look like. They want growth now. And so they show up and they go to our masterminds. And so as Invictus, your masterminds are included and you go to these masterminds and my God, they are incredible. They're sensational to look at the raw truths that every single person is going through and saying, hey, listen, this is how I think, this is how I feel, this is what I think it should be. And then getting called out by your group of peers in not a rude way. I mean, everyone has a chance to go in the hot seat. Everyone goes in a chance to say, hey, these are what I think my problems are. And then you're around a group of peers that say, that's not what your problem is. Your problem is this, and you're not addressing the elephant in the room. And then that person in the hot seat goes, my God, I didn't even see the elephant. I've been so blind. I've been looking away. And then you're with a group of people that actually help you solve those problems. They're not just like, wow, sucks to be you, Bob. They're like, hey, Bob, have you ever done X, Y, and Z? Or I did this in my practice and this is how it worked. But we are so transparent in these masterminds that they are life-changing. They are life-changing events. One thing that I tell my team members is that in 15 minutes, I can solve most problems. 30 minutes if I need to have a discussion, and an hour, we should be changing lives. So imagine if you have 2 or 3 days where you are having 10 to 12 hour days doing this. What kind of change could you be in the world if you spent this amount of time with experts in their industry around a group of peers that believe it's possible? Because we are the sum of the 5 people we're spending the most amount of time with. And so when we surround ourselves with all the naysayers and all of the people, and sorry, team members out there listening, sometimes you guys, you derail us also. When we've got big ideas and big dreams and we bring it back and you start nitpicking and asking all the questions and the details, it sucks the wind out of our sails big time. And so we need to be around other individuals that are entrepreneurial mindset, that are growth mindset to help us overcome that. Because we have a lot of big ideas and we come back and we get that wind sucked out and we say, oh, never mind, forget it. Instead, we need to show ways that we can empower. And that's one of the beautiful parts about Backstage Pass is if you have employees, have them jump in there, have them meet up, email us at lifestyle@theperfectria.com and have them schedule time to meet with one of our team members and say, yeah, I had that problem too. I had a lot of head trash about charging prospects a fee, but here's how I got through it and here's how it works and here's what I do when it doesn't work. And so we have those really candid conversations because that is where the growth happens. If you can't espouse ugly, honest truths and ask for help from people willing to give it and get super uncomfortable, you're never going to grow. I mean, be the mayor of Plateauville because that's where you're headed. You know, that's just not where growth happens. Growth happens from being uncomfortable and seeing something that is unachievable and figuring out a way to achieve it. That's where the growth happens. So we talk about radical candor. We talk about people calling us out. We talk about these truths. I want you to remember, you know, we're all about action items in this podcast. So let's extract some of those. 1, freaking toughen up. Toughen up. If you are a person that gets easily offended, ask yourself, what place is that person providing this advice coming from? Are they being hateful? If they're being hateful, why are you even thinking about them next? That's their misery that they're going to wake up with every single day. And that was a real wake-up call for me. When my spouse said to me one day, I was really, really mad at this woman. And she said, hey, do you think this woman wakes up happy to be who she is every day? Because today we're going to go hike one of the greatest mountains. You know, it was an easy trail. I'm not some big avid mountain climber. But in Alaska, we're going to go to this recreational place called Hatcher's Pass. We're going to have an amazing day with our dogs and our son. And we still have nieces and nephew that want to be with us. And we get to commune with God in the most raw land that this United States has today, the last frontier for a reason. And we are going to experience such jubilee and such happiness of being together. Do you think that individual wakes up and is that happy, has that much to look forward to? And it was really a wake-up call for me where I was like, wow, I do wake up happy. I do wake up energetic and full of God's promise that my life can be everything I want it to be. And this person wakes up miserable and hateful, and that's why they're constantly saying hateful things to other people. And so it really changed my perspective. So you need to filter through that. If things are offending you, where is that person coming from? If they're coming from a place of good intentions, or they have the audacity to maybe even be right, You better toughen up and learn how to take it. It's just your ego. Check it and figure out how to grow. 2, be uncomfortable. Get uncomfortable. That's where growth happens. Where you are super uncomfortable and don't know where things are going to lead. That is where, think about this. If you're a financial advisor out there, every time we talk about adjusting client fees, what is the number one thought we have? Well, we're about to lose all our clients. I'm going to be standing on the side of the street with a cardboard piece of paper that says, "We'll plan for food." Okay, is that what really happens when we adjust client fees? No. Do we lose some clients? Yeah. But for the most part, what happens? Clients are like, yeah, absolutely. We did this a couple of years ago. Clients were like, you know what? I've been wondering when you adjust the fees. I want you to increase it. I get so much value out of this relationship. I want you to be paid as much as, as feasible. And that is a great feeling to have. All right. Number 3, if you're not already enrolled in one of our programs, Backstage Pass or Invictus, what are you doing with your life? You need to, and maybe it's not us. If you don't think we're the right fit, go find the right fit. Our good friend Libby over at Efficient Advisors, she has phenomenal processes, checklists. She's a powerhouse in this industry. If we're not the right voice, go find the right voice, but figure it out. You cannot do this alone. And if you're choosing to, then you're limiting your growth. TPR Nation, this is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer. Go find people who share your values and change the world.
Before we go, something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect